The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you today by Draft. Looking for the best fantasy sports site on the planet? Sign up with Draft today. For a limited time only, our listeners will receive $3 matching their first deposit of at least $10. Use promo code DTR or visit draft.com/DTR to sign up now. Draft. Fantasy for the people. Now enjoy the show.
Caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. Robert Wood, touchdown. LA. Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. Picked off. Marcus Peters coming off the edge, and Ryan will be wrapped up by Clay Matthews. Everett in stride. Wow!
Franklin Myers gets his hand down there.
Leto got a hand on it. Did he pick it? He did!
Racing down the sideline is Akeem Talib. Gurley for MVP! Touchdown LA! Picked off by John Johnson. Well, it's Dante Fowler who is able to get to breathe. Greg Zuerlein sends the Rams to the Super Bowl! LA will play for the Lombardi!
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 268, and I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. Unfortunately, unable to join me today is Alexis Kraft. She is very sick, so definitely send her, your thoughts and get well soons over to her Twitter. You can bombard her, but while you do that, make sure that you follow her at the Alexis Kraft. Without further ado, though, let's get right into it. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate it. Leave some reviews. We might even start doing some giveaways again. We got all sorts of great stuff for you. And another thing real quick before, again, we get into it, DowntownRams.com is feeling the effects of a change that I've decided to make. As you guys may well know, I actually stopped writing for a bit. I took about 2.5 to 3 months off from, truly writing as much as I normally, used to. And Max Perez, who's done a stellar job, took over as the managing editor. Well, now I'm back in, full position of that. So Max and I will manage the website, downtownrams.com. The reason I'm saying this is because I do know that a lot of you listeners also like reading our material. On top of that, I also want to reach out through this podcast to basically, have the opportunity to basically say, hey, we are looking for writers that are active, people that want to write, people that want to put their thoughts out there and on the Rams, on the NFL draft, fantasy football, DFS, DFS football, of course. We don't want to keep it football-centric, but we're really looking for all sorts of writers. So if you're interested, if all of a sudden you're listening to this and you want to be a part of the team and you're jumping up and down at the opportunity, well, one, appreciate you there. But two, it's certainly possible. So reach out to me. You can reach me, Facebook, my full name, Jake Ellenbogen. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, at JKBogenDTR, Instagram, if you'd like, at JKBogen. You can email me, downtownrams@gmail.com. Really, we're just trying to get a really good team going. Just have to throw my thoughts out to TST, Turf Show Times, our friends over there at SB Nation. They're unfortunately feeling I would call the BS fate of this whole California law. That's it's the independent contractor law. Vox Media, which basically runs SB Nation, has decided to kind of do away with the California, all the California pages except for the 49ers and the Lakers page. So unfortunately, Turf Show Times, which has done work for over 10 years, are unfortunately having to shut down what they're doing, which I think is totally ridiculous, totally unfair. I really do feel for them. I know a lot of you, view us all as competition, but we're all friends. We all try to get the content out to you guys. So with them, unfortunately not able to continue, You have Rams Wire over. Cam DeSilva is over there. He's doing his thing. You have Rams Talk, and you have us. So we're going to do our best to give you the content that Turf Show Times was consistently giving you, and we got to pick up the pace now. Because we lost a big player in this community, and regardless of what happens. Would love to be able to collaborate with some of them. I've reached out to them, a few of them. But regardless of what happens, we have to continue doing what we did or what we've been doing and just stay on our A game and be real, but also, be insightful, give you guys a reason, to either want to write for us or want to, read what we write or want to listen to what we say. So, that was a lot more than I expected to say, but, I just figured I would say it. We'll get right into it. The Rams-49ers, this is a Week 16 matchup that really is the season. I know we've talked multiple times. Is this it? Is this for the Rams season? This actually is. If the Rams lose this game, they will be eliminated from 2019 to 2020 NFL playoff contention. The way I see this game going, I think it's going to be very interesting. I've said it. If you didn't already hear me on Locked On Rams, I already said this, but the 49ers played a completely different Rams team. That is not a redundant statement. It's an entirely true statement. The Rams have they've pretty much overhauled their secondary, and they have basically the same offense, but at the same time, Tyler Higbee is playing out of his mind. And they fixed their offensive line that was abysmal the first time the 49ers played against them. 49ers are a little banged up as well. You go back and you look and see that game against the Saints, and I think that was a costly win. I say that because, Richard Sherman got banged up, D Ford got banged up, Nick Bosa got banged up. They lost Weston Richburg for, I believe, the year. So, all sorts of injuries, their secondary got, decimated by injuries. So it kind of goes to show you, really, as much as it is talent-based, getting to the playoffs is really like survival of the fittest, that's really what it is. So, whoever is going to be able to survive the injuries the best is probably going to end up in the Super Bowl. And the Rams showed that last year. They didn't really suffer too many injuries. They had a really unfortunate one to Cooper Kupp. But aside from that, they didn't really have a ton of injuries. The Patriots lost this year's starting left tackle. They lost him early in the year. The rookie, Isaiah Wynn, out of Georgia. So, it can go either way. I do think the 49ers are a little banged up. They do have a lot of talent. I think what's interesting is slowly but surely, as they've found more success in the passing game, despite the fact that Dante Pettis has really kind of phased himself out of the rotation, and in favor of somebody like Kendrick Bourne or the rookie Deebo Samuel out of South Carolina, especially the trade for Emmanuel Sanders, as this passing game has developed, has really transformed, and has allowed Jimmy Garoppolo to really feel more comfortable and be able to really throw the football. The running game is starting to weather a little bit or, deteriorate. It's not as effective as it was earlier in the year. It's still good, but it's not as effective as it was earlier in the year. Now, in a one-game type of situation here, we're not talking about them in the long haul. We're talking about them in this game. I think they have a lot to like from a 49ers fan perspective. The Rams will have to deal with a bunch of different flavors, a bunch of different backs. First and foremost, you have Tevin Coleman, the big body back, the guy that ran a 4.3 that no one talks about at Indiana. The Falcons, the guy that the Falcons probably should have brought back, but instead they paid the wrong guy in Devontae Freeman. That's the first guy. He is a terror. Okay, this guy, when he gets going, he is underrated. He had 4 touchdowns earlier in the year. He had a game where he had 4 touchdowns, which no one also talked about. So he is definitely somebody that could pop off and have a really good game. And the Rams just gave up 100 yards to 2 straight two different running backs in the Cowboys game, and albeit they were really good, Ezekiel Elliott won in the best in the league, and I think Tony Pollard is going to be a star someday. It's still inexcusable, and it kind of leads you to believe, okay, maybe this week could be a little rough, especially because the 49ers can hit you in so many different ways. So you have Tevin Coleman, we talked about him, and then Matt Breida, who has kind of been phased out of the offense a little bit due to injury. It's funny how he went from kind of being the focal point at one point, if you could even name a focal point in the running game, to now really, when you look at it, he's kind of phased out. And Raheem Mostert, a guy that's kind of bounced around the NFL, he's the one that's really shot himself up the depth chart, and somebody that they can really rely on. Underrated balance for a running back. I know everyone likes to throw the prototypical scat back label on everybody that looks like Raheem Mostert, not giant back. Anybody that seems decently short or small gets the scat back label. But Mostert, he may not be a household name, but if he isn't now, he'll probably be in the playoffs. He is a really good football player. His football IQ is definitely up there with the best of them, and he's definitely a reliable player there. Jeffrey Wilson's another guy, underrated. They can bring him off the bench. He can make things happen. Talented. He's fast. He can hit the second level, and when he gets to the second level, he's gone. He's got breakaway speed. And then you have the fullback that they use, basically the Swiss Army knife that the Rams were hoping Sam Rodgers would be back when they drafted him in 2017. But that would be Kyle Juszczyk. Kyle Juszczyk has had a really good career over, he's been the do-it-all fullback. He's been the guy that there's a reason why there's not, fullbacks aren't in the league anymore. You have to be top-notch. In today's passing era, and Kyle Juszczyk is absolutely up for the challenge. So he is a legit weapon. He is a very talented guy. Obviously this is somebody that can block. He can run block. He can pass protect. He's somebody that can run routes. He's somebody that can run the football, just straight up run the football. He's a do-it-all guy, again, Swiss Army knife, and the 49ers love him. But there's one guy I haven't mentioned, and that's George Kittle, who is by far, in my opinion, the best player on this team. I think he is phenomenal. He's the best tight end in football. Talk about a blocker. He is unbelievable. Saw a clip, I'm sure you all did as well, about him blocking a guy so hard into the end zone where he was cracking up the whole time, like laughing hysterically or maniacally, however you look at it. Friend of the podcast, George Kittle. He unfortunately ended up getting drafted in the 5th round by the 49ers, and now the Rams, he's the new Ram killer. You had Larry Fitzgerald, now you have George Kittle. This guy is going to have to be accounted for at all times, so, that's definitely one of the big ones there. Their offensive line is solid, but I do think, no doubt, Weston Richburg, losing him is going to be a problem. This is also a team that's coming off a loss at home. So this would be their second straight loss if they were to drop this game to the Rams. But they are coming off a loss at home to the Atlanta Falcons. And it wasn't, a loss where you thought, okay, like the 49ers are going to lose this game. Like the 49ers always win these type of games, and they couldn't hang on. They, somehow beat the Saints on the road, at the Superdome. And, they somehow dropped this game against the Falcons at home. So the NFL, it's pretty crazy. The Falcons have kind of had some interesting games. They beat the Saints as well, so really interesting there. But, before we get to the defense, just talking about the offensive line a little bit, they got Joe Staley back. The last time the Rams played them, they didn't have Joe Staley or Mike McGlinchey. That does work in the 49ers' favor. Ben Garland has moved over to center with the injury, the aforementioned injury to Weston Richburg. And then you have Laken Tomlinson and Mike Person, former Ram, at the 2 guard spots. Defense, you're looking at guys like Nick Bosa, Dee Ford, Sheldon Day, DeForest Buckner, Arik Armstead, Solomon Thomas, Contavious Street, now that he's been elevated back to the roster, Azeez Al-Shaair, Fred Warner, Drake Greenlaw, Elijah Lee, and in the secondary, Quan Williams, Akello Witherspoon, Richard Sherman, Jaquiski Tartt, Jimmy Ward, Tavarius Moore. They use a lot of these guys: Emmanuel Mosley, DJ Reed, and Dante Johnson. So it's a good rotation. It's, on paper, you wouldn't look at this team and think, "Wow, this is the best defense in football." But as much as he irritates me because he was on TV, I'm sure Rams fans know this, very well. The last time the Rams played the 49ers, Robert Saleh was on TV as much as Rob Ryan used to be, for whatever reason. And to be fair, Rob Saleh has really done a nice job with this defense, and it's really interesting because he's been there. But the common denominator, really, all of these guys have been there. Except they added Dre Greenlaw, who's been playing out of his mind, former pick out of Arkansas, and then of course they have Nick Bosa, and he's one of the best players. I mean, like, he is phenomenal, just beyond his years. So that's the big reason for that as well. Now here's the thing: the Rams are that team that can beat anybody and lose to anybody. So This is a must win for the Rams because we've already talked about it. Their season is mathematically officially over if they lose to the 49ers on Saturday night. Now, one would think the 49ers aren't losing to the Rams. They're not losing back-to-back games. Here's where I would challenge you. The Rams have a better team on paper. Their roster is better than the 49ers. Players that I think are going to be, needed in this game, counted on in this game. Well, first off, Jared Goff has to play a lot better than he did the first time they faced. Jared Goff was absolutely horrendous. Now, keep this in mind. The offensive line was pretty much non-existent, right? At the same time, Jared Goff was non-existent as well. And actually, he would have been better off being non-existent because he was that bad. I mean, I don't think you guys remember, because I totally understand if you blocked out of your mind. Jared Goff threw 24 passes for 78 yards. His leading receiver was Tyler Higbee. He had 25 yards. Jared Goff fumbled twice. I mean, guys, that was bad. But going back to this game, the Rams did not have, if you remember, the Rams did not have Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was inactive. He was hurt. It's the only game he missed all year. Malcolm Brown, 11 carries, 40 yards. He was their leading rusher. Darrell Henderson, 6 carries, 39 yards. Robert Woods ran for a touchdown. Like I said, Higbee with 25 yards was the leading receiver. I mean, Corey Littleton had 14 tackles. Marcus Peters had a pick. Aaron Donald had 2 sacks. I mean, Marcus Peters isn't there anymore. He's gone. It's going to be a different team. John Johnson was on the Rams at this point. He was still playing. He didn't get hurt yet. So it's definitely going to be interesting. Again, I know the thought of, well, it's just Jalen Ramsey that was added to this roster is creeping into some people's minds, and I get it. But try to realize that Jalen Ramsey coming to this roster, coming to this team, it was not just a swap. It's not just that he's better than Marcus Peters. It gives them flexibility to do things that they weren't able to do previously. I mean, if I'm the Rams, Jalen Ramsey is shadowing George Kittle in this game. Because I'll tell you right now, the guy that is physically built and is athletically built to handle George Kittle and is skillful enough to handle George Kittle or at least contain him is John Johnson III, and he is out. So you have undersized Taylor Rapp, that's going to have to go against George Kittle. I think Kittle would eat him alive. I think he would do so with Eric Weddle. Marquis Christian is the interesting one here because he did a great job, for the most part, really shutting down Austin Hooper. I really like Marquis Christian. I wonder if they put him on George Kittle and try their luck, keeping Jalen Ramsey on Emmanuel Sanders or Deebo Samuel. I think Emmanuel Sanders is the guy that could eat the Rams alive, because the Rams don't get beat by the big play as often as they get beat by the death by 1,000 paper cuts. And what I mean by that is those quick slants that are a staple in a playbook like Shanahan's can eat you alive. And Emmanuel Sanders has been a model of consistency this year. He has really changed their offense. He's been one of the biggest acquisitions of the season, and it's really unlocked the potential of the 49ers offense. The Rams really have to prioritize stopping him. They also have to stop the run, because whatever they did last week didn't work. The Rams 100% have to win this game, and it is not going to be easy, but they're going to have to get it done. They lost last week 44-21 against the Cowboys. Terrible performance. This is a team that I feel like has a better chance of winning coming back from a loss like that than just succumbing to that. In a way, I kind of felt like that was kind of fluky, but at the same time, you have to win them out because you had 3 games that you had to win, and even still, you need help. So now you need even more help, and it's not a guarantee. I guess the good news across the way, Monday Night Football, Packers, Vikings. And again, this doesn't matter if the Rams lose to the 49ers, but the Packers-Vikings game, there's going to be no Dalvin Cook for the Vikings. And I think that's a huge momentum builder for the Packers, because I do think Madison is somebody that could go off. I really like Alexander Madison, but at the end of the day, I think Dalvin Cook is special. I think Dalvin Cook had a top of the line season, and they're going to miss him in that game. But going back to the Rams game here, I got to say, I really think the Rams are going to win this football game. I have it at 23-17 Rams. I know it's crazy the 49ers dropped 2 straight and could drop a third if they lose to Seattle. I think it's entirely possible they do, and it kind of falls along the lines of exactly what I predicted. Because if you remember, guys, I got some flack. I said the 49ers lose 5 out of their 8. Well, if you do the math, I had them going 11-5, so if the Rams beat the 49ers and the Seahawks beat the 49ers, they would be 11-5. Interesting. Didn't get the games entirely right, but then again, so interestingly enough, that's how we would see that. So yeah, this game, the 49ers are 6.5-point favorites. 8:15, it's kicking off. It is the nightcap of a Saturday triple header that you just only see this week. Normally it's week 16 or 17, because college football's done or is done for the time being. So this game, 23-17. I think the Rams win this game. I think Goff plays solid, but I think the Rams go back to doing what is best for their offense and using the driving force of their offense. Teams are starting to be able to run a little bit on the 49ers. If you can get 4.5 yards per carry out of Todd Gurley, you can win this football game. Anything more is cake. And I think the way the Falcons ran the football with lesser talent in Devontae Freeman, I think it's definitely something to feel good about. And I don't really like the way they play at home. They almost seem like a better road team that thrives on the road. So I think the Rams win this game 23-17. Todd Gurley goes for $150 on the ground. They really eat up the 49ers defense. And at the end of the day, the Rams just win ugly. It's all about survive and advance. So the Rams, they survive. They move on to Monday night where they'll be watching the Vikings versus the Packers on their TV. And if the Vikings drop that game, it comes down to the final week, week 17, exactly what the NFL would want. Because the final week, you're looking at The Bears are going to play the Vikings, and they're going to play them for pride, and we'll see if they can play spoiler. And the Rams have to play the Cardinals, and the Cardinals have already seen the Rams once. It's a new coaching staff there, and Kyler Murray is somebody that could cause some issues. The first time the Rams stomped all over them, I know the Arizona Cardinals will be looking to spoil the Rams' hopes of making the playoffs. They're not going to lay down. So, all you can ask for as a Rams fan, I mean, this team already blew it, but here's the thing. Use this terminology, okay? The Rams blew it. They blew their opportunity at a guaranteed 6th seed, potential guaranteed 6th seed, and maybe even a 5th seed, because now if they beat the 49ers and they won last week, that would put them at 10-4, the 49ers at 11-4. Or sorry, that would put the Rams at 10 and No, I'm mistaken. No, that would put the Rams at 11-4. So, 11, or no, I'm all out of sorts. 10-5, there we go, not 10-4. Oh my God, 10-5. So that would put the Rams at 10-5 with an opportunity to go 11-5 if they beat the Cardinals. So that's how much of a bummer that game was, because the Falcons being the 49ers was pouring salt in the wounds to the Rams. It's a missed opportunity. They could have had the 5th seed, and they could have gotten, they could have played Dallas again. So that's a bummer. But, however, the Rams blew that opportunity. It doesn't mean it's over. They have a 4.5 chance of making the playoffs, and really it seems more likely than the percentage that is given. The Vikings have to lose 2 straight. The Rams have to win 2 straight, and I believe they get it done this Saturday night against the 49ers on the road. The Rams seem to thrive more on the road than at home. I don't really love the way Jared Goff has played at home. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of the good thing about them being here. And we'll see, but you have to go back to the running game. You have to control the clock. Keep in mind, as bad as the Rams played, as abysmal as the Rams were the last time, it was only a 20-7 ball game. So this time, 23-17. I have the Rams winning, and then we'll see, we'll watch, we'll all root, for the Packers like they're our own team. And then the next week, I think the first game is going to be the Vikings and the Vikings and Bears, which that game will be at 1, and the Rams and Cardinals game will be at 4:25. So it'll be the first time, really, the whole season. Now that we had a playoff picture for them, not talking about when they were 3-0, but really the first time all season when the playoff picture has been formed, that the Rams will be controlling their own destiny if that happens. So once again, the Rams 23-17. I have them beating the 49ers. We'll watch it Monday night. We'll see if the Green Bay Packers can fend off the Minnesota Vikings on the road. Vikings are 5.5-point favorites. That seems ridiculously high for going up against a team that has beaten teams that actually have a winning record, whereas the Vikings haven't. And on top of it, has won less games than the Packers. But anyway, that should be a game. And then week 17, if everything goes well, then you're looking at Bears Vikings. You're rooting for the Bears, potentially 8-7 or 7-8. Worth mentioning, if the Vikings end up playing, say the Bears win, they beat the Chiefs, not extremely likely, but if you look throughout the season, the Vikings, week 1, they beat the Falcons, who were 0-0, so that doesn't count as a plus 500 team. They lost to the Packers 21-16 on the road. They beat the Raiders, who were already 1-1. They beat the Bears. Oh no, they lost to the Bears. So this could be they lost to the Bears in Chicago with Chase Daniel at quarterback, 16-6. Then they beat the Giants on the road, who were 2-2. They beat the Eagles, who were 3-2. So I guess that's a winning team, if you want to call it that. They beat the Lions, who were 2-1. They beat the Redskins, who were 1-6. They lost to the Chiefs, who are 6-3 at the time, or 6-2 before the game. They beat the Cowboys, who were 5-3. So really, yeah, they beat the Broncos barely, 3-6. They lost to Seattle, 9-2. They beat the Lions, 3-8-1. And then they beat the Chargers last week, 5-8, coming into that game. So the Vikings have only beaten 2 teams with a winning record all season long when they played them. And right now, the 2 teams they beat, keep this in mind, 2 teams they beat, Dallas Cowboys right now, they are 7-7. So not even a plus 500 record. And the other team that they beat, the Eagles, that had a plus 500 record when they beat them, right now are 7-7. So, I'm not trying to say it's 100% happening, because the Vikings are favored in both games moving forward. 7-point favorites against the Bears right now, and 5.5-point favorites against the Packers. But what I will say is that this Vikings team is a little overrated. They haven't really played anybody, and when they play teams, they end up losing. And they've already lost earlier in the year to both the teams that they're about to play back-to-back. I'm not saying it's happening, but I will say that it's certainly possible. The strength of schedule is the weakest, and it is the weakest in the NFC. So the Vikings played the easiest strength of schedule and are 10-4. So we'll see. The Rams played the hardest strength of schedule, aside from the Falcons. So the Rams played the toughest strength of schedule. The Falcons played the second toughest, and the Vikings played the easiest. Rams also have them beat in strength of victory as well. So, interestingly enough, this Vikings team, while they have a 90% chance of making the playoffs, they have the easiest schedule in the NFC. So we'll see. That's going to do it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed. I've been Jake Ellenbogen. Well, I am Jake Ellenbogen. This has been the Downtown Rams podcast, episode 268. Bummer that Alexis couldn't make it, but she needs rest. She's been killing it with me, and she's exhausted. She's gone through a ton. So, wish her well. She'll be feeling better soon. We'll be back. I'll actually be, this week I'm going to be in Connecticut on a little getaway. So we'll record the podcast when I get back, probably around Monday or something like that. Maybe even wait till after the Vikings game. And, we'll go from there. Really looking forward to the way this season plays out. Regardless, we'll be there for you every step of the way, whether it's the draft, whether it's the playoffs. We're going to be I don't know how many of us will be at the Senior Bowl, but I'll definitely be representing DTR at the Senior Bowl. So really looking forward to all that. Thank you guys for your continued support, and I'll talk to you guys. We'll talk to you guys soon. Go Rams.